History Homos breaking all the rules, rewriting the past, making fools out of the fools, taking a stand against the powers that be. We're gonna rewrite history, just you wait and see. Revolution, we're taking back our own evolution with a punk rock solution. We rewrite the history books, tear them all apart. The men can't control us with a fire in their hearts. We're the number one enemies, roads building all the way. History homeowners fighting for a better day. Fireman, we'll never back down. We're taking a stand. Fireman, with our punk rock band.
And we're live. Welcome back to the show. This week, very special presentation for you all. And joining us this week, obviously, always Patrick. Welcome back.
Hello.
And also joining this week for the from the Not For Everyone podcast, we got Snobby Bobby.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Big fan of you too, Bobby. Bobby is the third. We're all three, I guess three points on the isosceles triangle of the Monica's Monthly Movies show on Monica Perez Substack / Rockfin. So if you're interested in this episode, this is a pre-plug here. If you're interested in this episode, maybe if you want to hear more me and Bobby talking movies, you can go check out Monica's page for all that. But anyway, special presentation this week. Long time coming. Actually, me and William did talk about this movie years ago, 4 years ago, in a bonus episode. But it was just like a 20-minute conversation. So this will be a definitive, meaty, full analysis of the classic 1968 science fiction film 2001: A Space Odyssey.
The music should have been playing for that.
We don't have the rights. We can't do that. But yeah, so and we were sort of chit-chatting before the show started, and Bobby, this is sort of where I was coming to this. This is one of the most discussed films of all time, probably, particularly on as far as the way we usually approach a movie analysis. This is probably like one of the key, pieces of cinema history in which this sort of process has begun. But to that end, of course, you're going to hear some, sort of similar takes to other that people have analyzed this movie on not just the internet, but prior to the internet even existing, particularly one being Jay Weidner. Is probably the first guy to come up with a schizo take on the 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I must say it is somewhat foundational in my own understanding of this movie, of course. So the thing is like there's a few major names you'll see crop up in the analyzing this movie, and Jay Weidner is one of the first ones. I think he wrote a whole book on it in the 1970s, actually. But in the early 2000s, this guy named Rob Ager, who's Scottish. Patrick, is that correct? Is he Scottish, or is he like some kind of?
I think he's Liverpudlian. Is that what they do?
Okay, whatever. But either way, he's British, we'll say. And he came up with a very novel analysis as well, and I definitely drawn a lot from his as well. And we're going to be covering all this, by the way. Don't worry. But I do think there needs to be like some kind of synthesis between them, because I think he leaves a lot on the table as far as what you can draw. And yeah, so am I doing so good so far? I was like, this is such a massive thing, like undertaking. I don't want to like approach
Truly
it the wrong way.
Bobby, play. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, jumping off what Scott was just saying, I was just telling him, it was like, hey, like this is, this has been quite analyzed in the
Yeah.
past, and I think I have a few, I don't want maybe inspired by unoriginal thoughts, but maybe some defiance to those general observations, or some challenges of those observations that you might find cliche if you have done a deep dive on 2001. But I am excited to hear everyone else's interpretation, because I've said this to you before, Scott. I think it was Dylan that said it, that art is, it's not so much about the intention of the artist, but more about the interpretation of the
If he said that, nobody ever understood it.
yes, it was very, I think it was him. Don't quote me on that.
Yeah. I agree with that, first of all. And I think to that end, I'm sort of like, that's the beauty of film and or art in general, to speak to that quote, really. But like, yeah, I can sort of pick and choose from Jay Weidner and Rob Ager and Jay Dyer and whoever I want to decide on what I want to settle on for my analysis. And it may not be exactly what you guys think too, because like I said, we all have our own personal relationship with this movie. So I must say this. Obviously, it's a movie that came out in 1968. Spoilers. And there's another thing I got to get out of the way here too, is that some of the things we're going to be referencing tonight are sort of sourced out of the accompanying novel, which was created concurrently with the film, with final cut from Stanley Kubrick. So it was sort of a collaborative effort between Stanley Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke, famed science fiction author, by the way. I've read many of his books, including these books, by the way. I've read these books when I was a teenager. I think a lot of teenagers picked these books up, by the way. Is that safe to say?
I mean, this came along with, Chariots of the Gods. This was
Yeah.
that era of, paperback conspiracy lit. Coinciding with LSD,
Yeah.
a totally organic, naturally occurring product that,
Yeah.
people
But
found of their own volition.
you say conspiracy lit. I mean, are we assuming that I mean, was there a clear interpretation of this being some sort of conspiratorial piece of work at the time when it was released, or was it just, my mind is tainted by pareidolia for conspiracy
Yeah.
everywhere. It's
I
all
know, same.
borderline schizophrenic. But in this case, I'm wondering if the audience at the time drew from it what we're about to talk about, and I would argue probably not. They were probably like, "That looks really cool."
I agree
Yeah,
with that.
exactly. Yeah. In fact,
But I would amend it a little bit because
if
go
I
ahead,
may,
Patrick.
probably would have had the intended effect.
Yes.
Which was to be I don't know, a promo reel, a promotional reel for space travel, or at the very
Yeah.
least, but go ahead, Scott. Yeah.
Well, I was gonna say, I do think that on some level, like, and Patrick and I sort of coined this term skitsploitation, which is like this, it's piece of media that sort of conjured up for people to then go and draw esoteric conclusions from it, essentially. And I do think, particularly 2001: A Space Odyssey, you have to say, at least, is one of those.
I would say at the very least, it plants the seeds to an overarching quote. Let's just call it an agenda, or
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I want to get into this a little more. I don't think it's quite the right time, but a lot of things I was kind of research. A lot of the claims people were making about this film is that Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick were all about creating a new mythology for human beings to kind of grapple with, or like planting the seedlings of, like, shifting the worldview of people via pop culture to something different than how we previously viewed the world. And I would argue that that's true to an extent, but a lot of this movie definitely borrows from more traditional themes and philosophies and mythologies as well, and just builds upon it, if not completely builds upon it, and then inverts it.
I couldn't agree more. And again, we're going to go through the actual like nuts and bolts of it later, but I think you'll see a lot of familiar faces, avid listeners of the show. You'll see a lot of familiar sort of occult names springing up for sure. And then also certainly like some pagan-y stuff. And again, we'll get into this later, but I will say that there is something to what you're saying, though, because I do think, and it's very, very obvious, really, the surface level plot of this movie, particularly as it pertains to the very beginning part with the dawn of man and the monolith and stuff. It's pretty hard to not draw the conclusion that the film is sort of trying to establish this sort of panspermia narrative into.
I literally wrote down panspermia in my
Yeah.
notes, which we will get to it. So, but yes, just sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, let's just jumping to the monolith thing, and in the movie, it's a monolith. It's a black, rectangle block thing. In the book, apparently, it was like a literal Stargate. I'm reading, apparently, or just something a little less ambiguous. I
Sure.
like the ambiguity in the case of the film because it does leave it open to interpretation. But going back to what I was saying about how this movie borrows from foundational familiar mythologies and builds upon them something new and different, the monolith it can be viewed whatever lens you want to view it through. It's the Gnostic archons, it's the Prometheus myth, it's the biblical tree of knowledge, it's the fallen angels, Nephilim, it's the you have to ask yourself, is this some kind of ancient alien? Like, it's fucking Sitchin Anunnaki shit.
It's everything. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's whoever. It's whatever you want to look at. It's like what's it called? Schrodinger's woo.
right. And ultimately, the source material was just like, no, actually, it's just aliens. Like the book was like, it's aliens. Like there was no ambiguity at all. But in this case, I'm just going like, everyone's saying like Kubrick and Arthur C. Clarke were out to create a whole new mythology for man to embrace. And I'm like, yeah, but this is just the same stuff we've always heard, at least at the beginning.
Right. For sure. So, yeah. So you mentioned the novel, and the novel is an important thing here because, again, like I said before, the film and the novel were created concurrently. And there are differences between them that aren't just in like things like you're saying, Bobby, with like what the meaning of something is or the origin of something is. There's actually like plot, like during the whole Hal sequence we're going to talk about later. That's like out of order. It's not the same sort of series of events. So there's marked differences between them. And to that end, I did want to make this clear. This is, even though we are going to be utilizing things from the books to sort of make our points, to sort of show perhaps like the underpinning in what we are talking about as it relates to the movie. That said, I do think the movie itself stands alone as a piece of art that doesn't necessarily need the book. And also, I wanted to make sure that no one feels like they have to go read the fucking book before they understand what happens in this episode either.
I read about half the book in preparation for this, and I will say, I mean, Kubrick is obviously known for this, right? Like the Shining book and the Shining movie are completely separate. It's famously, shunned by Stephen King, and it's kind of that same kind of thing. Although Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick did write the screenplay in tandem with each other.
But yeah, so again, we'll get to, when the book comes out, the book comes up. But for the primarily, I'd like to sort of hone in on the movie as a standalone sort of message, as it were. So, to go on to we talked a little bit about the panspermia. So the beginning of the movie, again, the Africa Dawn of Man scene. We're treated to meeting this group of apes Well, first of all, I should mention that there's 2 or 3 minutes of just odd music for and no sound and no visuals whatsoever. So you're
I
actually
literally thought my Blu-ray player. I was like, "What is this supposed to happen? Why is it
every
just?"
time I watch this movie, I
Yeah.
do this. I go, wait, no. This is supposed to be. This is supposed to be. Okay,
Yeah.
no, go. Because yeah, I have a fucking MP4 of it.
It's
I
almost
don't
like
even
the
have a DVD
baseball
player. Like,
joke when they're just showing the ship going for miles and miles long.
yeah. Oh yeah. It's just like a long, like a Family Guy style bit where it
Right.
just goes on too long. Um, but yeah. So what was I gonna say though? So yeah, there's about 2 or 3 minutes of this, and it was unique at the time. And it's interesting because what we're gonna see next is this is like obviously to me was a direct clue because when you finally see the apes encounter this monolith, it is the same soundtrack is playing. So, and this kind of goes into the whole Rob Ager analysis there. But we'll get there. But so basically it puts this idea in our heads that that sort of before man had, sort of rose up onto his own 2 feet and become the species that would conquer the earth. Um, and by the way, it shows these apes as being like beset by, leopards and other bands of ape men, and they don't have like sort of long-term goals or aspirations or anything.
Hang on,
Um,
tapirs, whatever those things
they're
are.
fighting with tapirs, yeah,
Fighting.
over
Never mind.
water.
They're getting pushed around by the tapirs. Tapirs are just muscling them for their water source.
Oh, is that what those things are called?
I think
Yeah.
so.
Those little
Yeah.
elephant pig things.
Yeah.
Desert
They're
pig.
kind of cute. I kind of like them
They're neat.
actually.
I think it's kind of gamey.
Yeah, I bet.
Gamey, but it's fatty. It's but yeah, and they, like you said, Scott, they seem to, like most of us, they seem to have no concept of the future, no sense of anything ever happening. Yeah.
If you do notice the apes, like the post monolith, the apes that were exposed to the monolith when they're battling the other apes, the ones that were exposed are much more visually upright, almost standing.
Right.
I don't know
Yes.
if you guys caught that, but that was fun. That's a fun adventure.
Yeah, well, yeah, the guys they had hired to play the apes are like a French mime troupe, and like they were able to like go through full, evolution. Like that was part of their routine was like being able to go from full ape to full human in like a seamless like act or something. Very
How you
cool.
how you get mimes that can do monkey noises? It's you can post,
I think it was ADR actually. I'm not kidding. I think
Probably
it was
was.
actually ADR.
Um, I, I mean, it looks so good though, man. I mean, that's just what rear screen projection, I think it is, but it
Yeah,
looks
that was all shot in studio. I think
I
those
was
are
just gonna say, funny you mentioned that because
I
we're
guess
watching
so.
the movie. I'm watching the movie, and my wife goes, "Where did they shoot this?" I go, "In a building."
Yeah, yeah. I had the same experience actually.
Yeah.
all of it.
Like, look
I
it
mean,
up, and I'm like, we don't need to.
No, like I know, and I go, no wonder they picked this guy to be to make the moon landing. I mean, it looks better than the fucking moon landing.
I mean, I was just gonna. There are very few movies as far as visually that hold up to this caliber. I would say maybe the original Jurassic, even the original Star Trek, Star Wars doesn't.
Star Wars stinks compared to this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I watched this in high def, like 4K Blu-ray, and I was like, this looks fucking incredible. Still to this day,
it's flawless.
yeah, it really really is, and I think I would. It's not as like profound, but I would say maybe like the original Jurassic Park, the animatronics and stuff kind of hold up in that same way. It didn't age poorly, but like I said, like if you watch high def 1977 A New Hope Star Wars, it is like you can see the strings at some point,
It's bad. Yeah, also particularly that remember that shot where they couldn't figure out how to they did the speeder and it's because they couldn't figure out a way to get it to turn without showing the wheels. They just like rubbed like Vaseline on the
Hey,
lens.
you gotta work with what you got. I mean, this movie had a pretty big budget.
and a
all
lot
things
of it.
considered. For the time. I think it was like
Oh yeah.
10.5 to 12 million dollars, which was
Does someone want to pull up the U.S. Fucking inflation calculator for me?
uh
I got
40 billion dollars.
No, it's not quite that much, but it's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot. But that's a great segue because I want to say that this movie was financed by the spookiest spooks, by the way. Um I know that IBM had a huge stake in this movie. If I'm not mistaken, the Rand Corporation partially funded it. And I don't know. There's other, there's obviously speculation we could do here that
Which
some
is
of the corporations
the
or something where CIA
directly
fronts.
referenced in Dr. Strangelove, like
Yeah,
like lampooned in that movie,
yeah.
which is
The
it kind
Bland
of makes,
Corporation.
yeah, it kind of makes fun of them. But anyway, this is anyway, going back to
It's
2000.
good to know these guys have a humor about themselves.
Well, the thing is, so this goes to the Rob Ager analysis because Rob Ager, his whole thing is like, so they were mad at Stanley Kubrick for making Doctor Strangelove. And then
Right.
he was like, okay, well, how am I going to win them back? Okay, I'll sell them on a movie that it's about all the things that they love.
And fake the
It's
moonlight.
yeah, maybe. But no, like it's about all the things they love. It's the space race. I'm literally selling like a TV product, like a TV commercial almost, NASA and the space program. And then also he gets to plop in Pan Am Airlines. He plops
Hilton.
in the Hilton. Oh my God, Howard Johnson. And
Yeah.
Have you guys
not
been
just-
to Hojo lately? It is not what 2001 portrays it as.
no, I haven't
Howard
been to one in
Johnson.
a long time.
It's quite the shithole. But anyway,
Do they still get the croquettes, the chicken croquettes?
I actually I booked a Howard Johnson not that long ago, and we checked in, and my wife was like, we need to leave."
We're
Really? Yeah, we left.
someone's doing well.
There are people in the woods outside. Yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
But anyway, so what's it called? So obviously it's product placement, and also
$108 million in today's money.
$108 million
It's a lot of
from
scratch.
12. Yeah, that's quite a bit.
I mean,
That's like that's like the average budget of a movie now.
And that's
but-
on the books. That's not like siphoned dark money from.
Well, that's the thing. So, I believe that Jay Dyer has personally interviewed Kubrick's daughter, and who appears in the movie, by the way.
Who is
As,
a Scientologist?
What's that?
She is a Scientologist.
She is a Scientologist. You're right.
And the poor actress, I will say.
As a baby, yeah, she isn't great. You're right. But she says that there were indeed like CIA, like people on set being like, okay, giving notes and stuff like that. So who knows? I don't know. We'll never know. Obviously,
You don't have this level of like visual talent as a film. I think Kubrick, like I think he's the greatest of all time visually.
sure.
That shit's gonna get co-opted so fast. Like it just,
Yeah.
Anyway.
And also, I mean, like again, like it's not just in this movie. All of his movies have like a highly subversive, themes going on. Obviously,
Yeah, and it's always that like that juxtaposition between like what is the money and agenda behind putting this movie out, and what is Kubrick really trying to say? Like there's always that like it's not always mutually exclusive kind of thing, or it is.
Yeah. Well, that's the Rob Ager thing. Well, so that's what I was gonna say. So he puts all this stuff, and then by the way, also, nicely puts in all this fucking panspermia, human potential, transhumanism, Esalen shit, all this kind of Neo-Platonism, Crowley sex magic, all this shit.
Epidemics as cover stories. Exactly.
Thank you. Yep. And then so it's got all this stuff. So it's like an elite's wet dream, right? Well, the Rob Ager take is, well, he's actually subverted their desires as well. And it's sort of a revelatory expose on the entire agenda, as it were. And we'll get into that probably right at the end. I just wanted to sort of lay the framework for this. And again, I don't want to necessarily just hang my hat on that interpretation as the totality of it either, because in the interim, we're going to be talking about, like I said, this is Crowley sex magic, all this Neoplatonism and stuff that is there, and he sort of just kind of steps over it for his his analysis essentially. So just saying.
I want to know like how much of that, how much of what was put in this movie, and maybe I don't know if you have a take on it or not, but like how much of it was inserted with the, for example, Crowley sex magic, like, or was it conscious decisions by Kubrick? How much of it was like influenced to like, hey, you got to add, you got to check the boxes here, and we want some Crowley sex magic, we want some Tree of Life, Kabbalah visuals, we, you know what I mean, or was it him, just throwing it in there for the sake of throwing it
Well, I
in?
think you said it. It's not mutually exclusive. I think like
Right.
he's a player in that whole set. I have to imagine. So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like what is his and what is him and what is them. Doesn't matter. It all that matters is it's a masterful piece of art that we get to enjoy for generations to come as a result of it.
Bingo.
And yeah, we are better off for 2001 having
I
been.
think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I'd say the light year level of advancement that it just plugged into the the cinema industry, what people realized was possible, and what we got because of it. It's not for nothing. And I frankly, I don't know. I think that there's plenty more done uh that's been done more to advance the whole panspermia, Darwinian
Yeah,
evolution.
Joe Rogan podcast.
There it is. Yeah. So, um, yeah. Overall, although I'll be honest, this is a cold fucking movie, man. This is a cold movie. Like I don't
Yeah,
enjoy it watching it.
it is that. I mean, you got to keep in mind the context of the time too, and especially not necessarily in sci-fi literature per se, but in the films prior to this in that genre were schlock. I mean, still propaganda, still Red Scare, fucking giant
Yeah.
ants, nuclear shit, but it was B movies, right, for the most part.
Right.
And then eventually you get into kind of the 60s, like I guess like the Charlton
Cinema
Heston,
Nouveau. Yeah.
Green, Omega Man stuff as well. But prior to, I mean, this was when like, hey, let's take this genre seriously, back a lot of money with a lot of talent. What kind of agendas can we insert in this and fucking blast it out as the next big thing? And that's exactly, I think, what happened. Because again, like not that long before this movie, it was like, hey,
Yeah,
hi,
Roger Corman's weekly
it was like
fucking what
tarantula.
B footage? Yeah, what B footage can we get and stuff into a fucking movie where a guy talks for 45 minutes about fake science in a lab, and then we can wrap it around some fucking B footage
Right.
of a tarantula we got and be like, "There's your movie, idiots."
Colander.
But the common thread there is the propaganda behind it to
Definitely.
shift the consciousness or whatever.
I, I
Um,
I think they just started taking us more seriously, probably. Like
yeah, well, yeah, something we deserve good art in our propaganda too, don't we? I mean, otherwise, how would it?
My
We
favorite kind
wouldn't
of
keep
propaganda.
going back. Yeah, we wouldn't keep coming back.
it's
One thing,
probably
okay, so one more thing before one thing I gotta say though is just throw 2 weeks ago we had Monica on actually to talk, and me and William had Monica on, and we talked about in the run up to World War One, this Milner group, they owned many of the publishing houses in England, and they paid out like up and coming and established authors to write these hokey, shitty, not memorable stories about German spies in the run up to World War One, and it was absolutely an artificial phenomenon. And then again, you're gonna see this again in America, but I think I can't get away from the notion that Arthur C. Clarke, Ray Bradbury, all these guys, even Heinlein, who I think is very talented. Arthur Clarke is talented too, by the way. They're all pretty talented. But my point is, there was an artificial bump in these fucking novels and in their popularity, definitely because of this sort of dark money, culture creation that was going on around science fiction and science is particularly as it related to weapons and the Cold War kind of space race type stuff.
And I mean, this goes back to H.G. Wells as well, The Open Conspiracy, which is literally a guidebook on. It's not. I mean, I don't. It's not fiction, but it's not nonfiction. You know what I mean? It's like it's literally called Blueprints for a World Revolution, and it's all this dystopian technocracy stuff. I mean, this is H.G. Wells. I guess this was like what I don't know what era he was. It was
like the 1920s.
1920s, yeah.
Yeah.
So sci-fi has a long history of pushing creepy
societal
creepy agendas.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Okay, so we talked about and also, by the way, the right out the bat, of course, the iconic also Sprach Zarathustra as the soundtrack. By the way, it's inescapable that we draw the obvious conclusion that he is trying to show that this is a Nietzschean story that we're now entering. Essentially, this is one of his most famous works, is Thus Spake Zarathustra, of course referring to Zoroaster, the Persian deity slash whatever, I guess he would be a prophet, I suppose. But it's sort of the birth of monotheism. It is the birth of sort of Gnosticism, which is a big influence on like the occult movements that informed this film, and also Nietzsche himself. But also one of the key aspects, I think, that the reason why this illusion is made is because in the Zoroastrian cosmology, I think there's a, much like Buddhism, and by the way, there's direct lineage, ideological lineage from Persian cosmology to Indian cosmology. So you'll see a common thing here, whereas there's this cosmic cyclical motion where it goes around and it returns. Everything's sort of in a cycle or whatever. And
like the ship.
like the ship.
All
Like
over.
the Jupiter sigil. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bobby. What'd you
Can
say?
I just say, the circular symbolism's like crawling at this movie. Like it's everywhere. And it's like you were saying, it's like it represents like the infinite or the cyclical nature of evolution.
Yeah, like samsara, or that's what they call it, right? When you're reincarnating over and over again.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Until you hit bingo.
Okay, but before we go any further, Patrick.
Uh-oh.
Well. What do we got in the docket?
Where are you going here? Because I had something.
What do we got in the docket this week? Is it a new product from our good friends at Magic Mind? Yes, Magic Mind, your one-stop shop for human potential, has got a delicious new gummy that we are very excited to talk about. No longer are the mind-bendingly potent stress-eliminating powers of Magic Mind inextricably linked to a stimulant.
Yes, Scott. You know I'm a caffeine fiend, and I've been looking for a way to get a boost of energy without dipping my toe into the fiend pool in the afternoon or nighttime, but still get the same rush of creativity and focus that Magic Mind always gives me.
Well, then I imagine you were thrilled when Magic Mind let us know we'd be helping launch their new gummies. These things have the same great ingredients that are in the normal Magic Mind, but sans caffeine, making them perfect for popping right before the show or right before a late night study session. I'm going to have one right now, actually.
Did you bring enough for the whole class?
No, because we're on the internet. Keep going.
These things have all of the same organically grown mushrooms and scientifically verified focus boosting ingredients that classic Magic Mind has, but in a delicious gummy that reminds us of green apple fruit leather. And it comes in a convenient Ziploc bag with a 30-day supply inside. And of course, it still carries the 100% money back guarantee. That's how confident Magic Mind is that you will love these things.
So if you're on board, head over to our link at www.magicmind.com/HHGM and use our code HH40 or just follow the link in the description. That's www.magicmind.com/HHGM code HH40 and try the new gummies today. Anyway, so we're just
The whole 30-day supply right before I watched 2001.
and that's how you understood the film.
I got Blade. I don't think it had anything to do with Magic Mind though.
But shouts out Magic Mind, obviously. I gotta say, it is pretty tasty.
Stuff, dude. So where were we with this whole? Because I wanted to mention Mr. Ager real quick.
Please lay it on me.
He of course, foundational research into a lot of movies, and his stuff's great.
Yeah, it's not just 2001 this guy's done.
No, plenty of Kubrick stuff and plenty of everything else. Most people here.
I also, sorry to interrupt you, but I also watched his whole series on The Shining too. Probably the best and most least bullshitty analysis of The Shining that I've seen, because a lot of them are bad. Like there was that whole documentary about that they put out on Netflix. Dog shit, dude.
Are you talking about the MK Ultra one?
I don't know, but it was like Room something or other.
There's that Room 237. There or 3, whatever it is.
Whatever it is, yeah.
The movie. There's a new one out. I don't know who did it. It's about how it makes the argument that The Shining's basically an allegory for MK Ultra.
All of his movies are. So I mean,
nothing profound. Yes.
Yeah.
Still send me that link. I need to see that.
It's really good. I'll listen to it.
Okay, I haven't seen that. So, but either way, the Rob Ager stuff is great. So sorry, go on, Patrick.
Oh yeah, and like you said, he's not one to dabble in bullshit. He's very sound arguments, and he's very meticulous. So, and most recently he's been doing like a series on he did a long video on, was Kubrick assassinated? There was something else, and I believe his conclusion was no. Then there was
no, he was a fat old man who probably smoked a lot.
Wish we could all be so lucky. Full Metal Jacket and JFK. So he's definitely not afraid to dabble in the naughty stuff, but I think he isn't going to either way. He did.
There's no Jay Weidner.
Yeah, but he did.
How about this? Jay Weidner, and he's like, "You ever watch 2001 on weed?"
No, just Magic Mind, Mr. Weidner. But,
all right, it's over. You don't have to keep plugging it.
So, he did do a almost 2.5 hour video on Arthur C. Clarke and him being a Thailand enthusiast.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we
Sri
knew
Lanka.
that.
Well,
what is it? Sorry.
For similar reasons, Sri Lanka apparently as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Arthur C. Clarke is one of those guys.
Yeah,
But-
he's an Epstein friend.
Yeah.
And let's not forget Kubrick did Lolita, which it's fine. I watched it once and never again. Not comparing.
I think I will say I've seen that movie before, and I kind of feel like the tone of it is it's like making fun of pedophiles.
Sure. Yeah.
It is, but it's like at the same time, it's like, can we just not talk about this or, throw them in prison? I don't want to like have fun making fun of pedophiles. Really, It's not my bag.
Well, so yeah, it's just funny how Clarke and Kubrick crossed paths for 2001, and Kubrick basically bullies him through the whole production. Yeah, he just tells him no, that's fine, that can stay. Rewrite this for 2 weeks. I think he was just trying to keep him busy and away from his daughter.
He famously like fucks with everybody he works with and like tries to drive them insane.
Yeah.
Really putting that high verbal IQ to use.
So folks should check out that whole thing if they want to look into the Arthur C. Clarke and so on. But yeah, Kubrick is, I think that his whole aura and his whole filmography actually amps up the skitsploitative aspects of 2001. I don't think it's that apparent on its face until you take his whole thing and
I think you're onto something with that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just telling Scott the other night that like I haven't watched this. This is the first time I've watched it in a while, having been kind of dipping my toe in like rich weirdo philosophies.
Yeah.
And previously, I was telling Scott, I was like, I'll come on the show and talk about this movie. Like, I've never been able to really grasp it, especially the end, blah blah blah. And then I watched it like last night. I'm like, oh yeah, this is like fucking second.
Yeah, this is the shit I've been looking into for the last year.
Yeah. It was a lot easier to interpret it. Yeah, exactly.
It really is funny because like it's I actually feel like I'm taking crazy pills whenever I start looking back into this rabbit hole stuff of all like just even semi-related stuff because it's like, oh, it really is the same guys and the same ideas. Even fuck the guys. The ideas are the same. It's fucking amazing here that it all goes back to like weird Talmudic magic. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's fucking crazy.
You follow the ideas, you will inevitably find the guys, link the guys, find them in the same room.
Yeah.
Find that picture of them in the same room. So yeah, and would you say that this is his I mean, he did Eyes Wide Shut, which is you could say his most revelatory in a sense.
I guess, yeah.
But I think all of them have a unique thing where they're all hitting on a
certain thing, yeah.
Eyes Wide Shut's probably his most overtly revelatory. Like it's like
bingo.
You don't really have to read in too much. I mean, there is obviously some like subtext to that movie, but I think it's pretty like
it's a movie about elites having weird orgies and shit. Like, it's like, so how much more explicit can you be really with that one? Whereas this is, this is the thing because it espouses very subtly espouses like these themes of like transhumanism against really it sort of coalesces at the end. But it's not, though, because, again, it starts out right at the very beginning of the movie. You got this panspermia stuff, and then also, like, this revolutionary, evolutionary sort of thing. This idea, this Pierre Teilhard de Chardin thing. Crazy, by the way, Patrick. We keep fucking running into this guy. He's like a major character in that Hyperion novel series that we fucking or major influence, I guess. But basically, thumbnail sketch here. His philosophy, and by the way, he was fucking excommunicated from the Catholic Church for this because he was like a Jesuit bishop, I want to say.
Excommunicated, sex communicated. What's the difference?
Yeah, let's call the whole thing off. But what's it called? Yeah, so his whole thing was like he was like an ardent evolution guy, and he was like desperate to get the church to adopt evolution as like part of church doctrine or whatever, to the point where he faked a missing link, like archaeology dig.
Peking duck.
Like, look, it's here. Like,
yeah, the Peking duck, right?
No, it's Piltdown Man.
Yeah, the same thing.
I love that guy.
Yeah, very funny looking. Well, he's not real, so that's why he's extra funny looking. But but the thing is that and the other thing is like if you recall like the origins of what the SPL not the SPLC the what's the ones that are like the freedom of speech guys. ACLU, thank you. One of their very first cases, if you remember, is that Scopes monkey trial, which was where in the South they were like having a trial over whether a teacher could teach evolution or not. And it's like, oh, I see what's going on here. There's like a notable parallel that you can draw between leftism, Marxism, and this radical evolution in theory. And like the idea that everyone needs to hear this theory. And it ties together neatly when you find out that, oh, their entire thing essentially is by way of Karl Marx, by way of Hegel, and by way a little bit of Nietzsche as well. There's this sort of scientific inevitability of a new man coming on the scene at some point in the future. And each of these people I just referenced here, they all have a different idea of what that new man's going to look like. And Teilhard too, by the way, same thing. It all looks like something different, but the thing that commonly ties them together is this radical sort of march of evolution that is like a scientific certainty. And it's like, and also in that there's going to be like a political shift tied to this, essentially. That's like a big aspect of it.
Just bouncing off my thing about the claim of the new mythology being planted here. Yes, it does play off of those foundational, more archaic mythologies, but like kind of going off what you were saying there is like this it almost takes those familiar ideas, exploits them, or almost like uses those to promote or perpetuate the human evolution, ambition, potential, and seemingly ascend beyond the old worldview.
Right.
Some sort of, as the old worldview being a subservience to a creator god,
Right.
not ancient alien gods, but like actual God. So like, I think with that, I think that like, I think a microcosm of that is like you were saying, like Marxism, progressivism. It's always this like push towards something, some sort of like pie in the sky utopianism. But ultimately, we learn, through stories like the Tower of Babel or Icarus flying too close to the sun. And once you try to supplant and subvert the rules to the game, in this case being God, like that's when shit comes crashing down and kills everyone and starves them, or whatever it is, So yeah, it's this delusion. It's kind of this left-wing delusion about this like this utopian Ubermenschen
man.
and
Like there's like sort of this notion that you'll hear from like college type leftists, like the ideal system is communism, but people are just too fucked up to ever accept it. So like, but that like
that's the whole
that sounds
point, right?
Yeah, I agree, but that's the thing. But
Right.
the thing is like the people who came up with Marxism came up with communism in that sort of vein. They were like, yes, you're right. We're gonna be different. We're gonna be different people. That's part of this sort of metaphysical aspect of this radical philosophy that, again, it starts, maybe it doesn't even start in Marxism. Maybe it starts even earlier. I don't know. We know that
I think
people
it's all this
funded
time.
Marx, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, you got to break a few eggs to make an omelet kind of thing. It was like, well, 100 million or whatever it is.
Yeah, however many it is. Who knows? It could be like 12 and they just lied because they wanted to win the Cold War too, by the way.
So what if
you guys
no eggs
ahead.
left? So what if there's no eggs left? I mean,
they've culled them due to the bird flu.
I was gonna say, you seen the prices? How many eggs are we trying to break here?
Yeah. And we keep kind of going back to this transhumanist thing, and I'm not saying that there's not foundational themes of transhumanism in this movie, and I think that like media like this, like 2001, definitely like lays the groundwork for that worldview. But I would say that in this case, it's less about physically, literally merging with technology and more about building technology, utilizing technology as a vehicle to help assist ascending to that higher state of being and consciousness.
Sure.
And escaping the limitations of the material world. So 2001 is less about like, hey, let's chip your brain and give you a Darth Vader hand, and eventually we're going to build this wonderful dystopian nightmare that only the elite. It's more about or like genuflecting to the AI Antichrist or whatever. It's more about utilizing technology rather than merging with technology. But I think that there's something related there as well.
Well, I think that to that end, you're right, Bobby. At the end, it does sort of culminate in something of a apocalyptic battle between man and machine in the HAL portion of the film, of course.
Yes.
And man does emerge victorious, only then to reach his apex of evolution and et cetera, and now reach this new state of humanity or whatever.
The Hal thing is interesting. I love that scene where he's kind of going turncoat and he's going full what's his name from Alien, where it's like the agenda or the overarching like mission is what's more important here, kind of
Right,
thing,
right,
which I
yeah.
feel Alien definitely borrows from
Took
that.
from this, yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, steals. But like HAL 9000 is a product of man, and because man is fallen and is fallible, he has the potential for evil. Those characteristics would be inherited into man's creation. And then you start to see at this halfway point where Hal starts to go rogue or whatever, but also he's programmed to do that because a man programmed him to do that, or whatever it is. It's open to interpretation, I guess.
Sure.
What's interesting about this scene is where he starts using technology to manipulate and claim like words that only an emotional human would use.
Yeah.
Like
I was
he goes from
born.
this sterile AI thing to
Right.
this
Or
kind
I'm afraid, Dave. I'm
of I'm
afraid.
afraid that hurts. He says something like that, and then
Yeah.
yeah, and then
It's hurting me. Yeah.
he's trying to humanize himself, even but he's just programmed to do so to like
Right.
counteract whatever Dave's up to in that scene.
But again, sorry to just sort of go back on this, but you definitely nailed it there because I was going to say it isn't so much that it's like a transhuman morph of human and AI, but it is worth mentioning that when a man creates another living being, he is aping God. And I
Yes.
use ape consciously, obviously.
Uh, yeah, and um, this is kind of a aside, but I believe that like imagine the rules to the game, like the limitations of our existence. Whoever set those rules is in one big tube, and let's say technology is a way to alleviate some of that those rules or kind of bend them in a way or alleviate suffering or make life easier in some way, but basically you're just pushing the tube down with technology, and then eventually it's going to pop back up down the pipe, if that makes sense, in a big
Sure.
way.
Right.
I don't know where I was going with that, but I feel like it's applicable.
No, there's definitely something to it because I mean, like, at some point, then you're becoming a little more human than human,
Um,
and you've now lost sight of whatever your biological needs. And by the way, there's some good symbolism to this as well, particularly at that in that final hotel scene, um, where everything in the room, this hotel, this constructed hotel room that David Bowman finds himself in after stepping through or I guess flying through the monolith near the end of the film. All the things in the room are things of a biological nature. There's a sink, a toilet, there's a table with food. There's a bed. All things that it's explicitly um, they say that a computer cannot do. And so, and again, this is in the few moments, just few seconds of on-screen time, really, before Bowman transcends into the Star Child, which is obviously metaphorically representative of like the birth of the new man or whatever. And again, we can sort of underline that when we're wrapping up or whatever. But um, I think that there's something there because like there's the movie takes time to sort of acknowledge like what makes a human, and it is biological functions. And if through technology we sort of shed these needs, like through like extending our lifespan, or de-necessitating the need for sleep or eating, by creating artificial foods, which is something that happens a lot during the movie, by the way. Um, you are sort of robbing. I think this is Uncle Ted talks about this too, by the way. It's like in an industrial society, we have no connection to where our food comes from, and it creates this sense of dread that you can't escape because it's something that was foundational and fundamental to the human evolution, getting us where we are till today. And
it's
now
like
you go to the store and buy meat.
The duality of like suffering and alleviating suffering, or
Yes,
like nourishing versus starvation or
starving.
whatever.
Yes,
But ultimately, yeah, you're talking now. You're kind of getting into like the whole gray alien thing, or even like the Borg, where it's just like you're the entire humankind turns into this like amorphous blob of a superorganism that has no humanity left and just.
but enough about libtards.
All right, fine. Right.
Sexless, gray.
And then there's the whole population control agenda involved in that thing too. So anyway,
Yeah, that's a whole nother bag of tricks. But anyway, yeah, so okay, let's go back. Let's zoom out here and go back to the actual plot of the film. So we mentioned that the monolith arrives and informs in some cosmic manner the apes, the knowledge of which they can utilize harness technology. In its very first iteration is picking up a discarded bone on the ground and using it as a clobber weapon, causing them to achieve mastery over a rival group of apes. And you know, and then he at the end of the sequence, he throws the bone up into the air and it dwells on it for just a moment, and then the next shot we're treated to a bone shaped space station slash ship slash satellite, whatever you want, who cares.
or a
It's obviously a direct transitory cinematic technique to be like, look, this was the same impetus or this ability that caused the apes to be able to grasp the use of a simple weapon is also the same divine spark, if you will, that allows them to throw make creatures and structures flying through space.
little on the nose there, Kubrick.
It's fine. I think it
Oh,
needs
it's
to be
perfect. Actually, it's
Yeah.
one of the great, probably the most famous transitions in
Yeah.
film history, I think. But yeah, and in speaking of which, you know, all the kind of phallus and like vaginal symbolism and stuff like that, this is where that really comes to play. There's a lot of like ships going in and out of ports and like
Yeah.
like probes coming off of them or whatever. And normally I think that stuff's kind of hack, but like it's very necessary in the case of this movie to kind of communicate the whole like reproductive and evolution of man thing going on here.
Yeah, and this is not the first time he's utilized this same sort of motif. If you recall in the opening credits of Doctor Strangelove, there's like sort of this like real sentimental romantic music playing, and they put it over real footage of the planes that are the same ones that are in the plot, by the way, refueling in midair, which is not only just a marvel of science and technology, but it's also, you know, vaguely sexual. Like the planes dock and fucking and intercourse in a way.
I see dicks everywhere, to be honest.
Yeah. But yeah, so I mean, he's definitely utilized. So it's not crazy of us to go like it's penis, like
Right.
um,
It's not some deeply rooted homosexual urge.
yeah, we're not just gay for seeing dicks in this. It's real, I swear.
Clearly, that's a spaceship dick. Yeah.
Yeah. And then especially at the end too, which by the way, like, you know, where it's really obvious. I mean, there's these big dicks going into vaginas the whole movie, and at the end, this character is shot into like this swirly amniotic fluid that resembles a womb, and you know, it clearly looks like an egg fertilizing and all this shit. The whole movie is one big sex magic spell, as it were.
It is that from like a multi like it's also can be something as simple as the theme is birth and rebirth, so we're going to communicate that
Visually communicated, exactly. Yeah.
I'm skeptical. I didn't read a lot into it, and I'm not like a cult like expert. I'm skeptical. Maybe you guys can enlighten me on the whole like occult sex magic side of this movie.
Well, I'll say this. The entire movie, again, it starts with you know, a bunch of phallic objects docking and stuff like that. And in the end, it results at the very end of the movie, it results in a baby.
That's true. Well, but I mean, what does that have to do with like occultism, though? I guess is my question.
Oh, well, just Aleister Crowley's whole sect is like their whole thing is
Sex
the
magic.
creative act. It's sex magic they call it, but the creative act is like some sort of multi-dimensional thing. If you ever read what's that fucking book of Kurt Vonnegut, Slaughterhouse-Five, there's like there's this species in it that they see in the fifth dimension as well as the fourth and third, like we only see in. And
Mhm.
they say that the act of sex is like crazy because there's all this shit going on in the fifth dimension that we aren't even seeing that is happening while we're having sex and
Yeah,
creating
I
a
buy that.
life.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So, but that's it's sort of the sex magic thing as a takeoff on that. Essentially, like when you're doing the thing, is particularly when you go through these ritual activities.
It's
I
like
don't know
some
what
sort
they
of like
are.
conduit ritual for some other spiritual realm, whether that be demonic or however you want to define it, like
I
whatever.
think it's actually not even like demonic. Well, I mean, again, it is demonic because it's not God. But my point is, it's like based on some goofy ass like pre-Christian pagan stuff.
Right, right. Okay.
It's not like we commune with you, Satan. It's not that. I don't think per se. I mean, maybe it is. I don't know what behind
I
closed
guess the
doors,
other
but
question would be is like, was that overtly consciously put in there from a quote sex magic like intention? Like
I
who knows?
don't know. I can't. That's the thing. We can't say, but
Right.
I have to imagine he had to have been thinking about it a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. I
Also,
digress.
also they're confronting the monolith on the moon, you know. It really I just couldn't stop thinking about the desert sex ritual ceremonies that Crowley would conduct, you know, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that on top of the fact that these guys are, they're in procession around this black quadrilateral figure. You could just swap out their helmets for, do-rags and, turn that thing into a cube, and it kind of, it
Yeah.
echoes something else. It in the music that's just blaring. You have to keep the remote nearby with this movie because it just comes at you from all angles. These like shrieking, high-pitched, yell, and it really it was her, it was a horrifying scene that I couldn't get it out of my head that this was ceremonial, that this is like they're, in the book it's supposed to be Saturn, and we are people are surely familiar with the fraternists, Saturni, and all the weirdos connected with all that shit, and that
Mm-hmm.
back to Golden Dawn, and and that's Crowley, and so, but the fact that he shifts it to Jupiter, and then Jupiter, is that a gaseous planet? Am I?
It is.
Yeah, that just reads to me like a portal. Um, you know, uh, he doesn't land on Jupiter. He kind of just,
No, he doesn't. Yeah. And in the book, even he sort of aims his ship at a shape of the monolith within the gaseous, I guess, surface, air quotes, of Saturn in the book, of course. But yeah, he does sort of just go right into it and never like sets his feet down on Saturn or Jupiter or anything really. But yeah, he sort of just gets sucked into it. And you see this in the film, by the way. You don't even see the planet. You're just near, it says Jupiter and beyond. And you never see a planet at all. You just go straight into the fucking Matrix.
yeah, dude. That's my favorite transition in the movie, from just he's going towards, if I remember the succession of shots correctly, he's going towards Jupiter. Then it cuts to the same shot of the monolith, us facing upwards, the monolith, the sun cresting over it, the inverted
Yeah.
uh crescent moon that flashes in his mind, and then it's the light show, then it begins. And it's the same shot that the monkeys had when they
Yeah.
considered the phone as a tool. So I suppose that's what that's
His moment of that.
the acknowledgement of something greater, a technology to be wielded or whatever.
Yeah, Patrick, you obliquely just mentioned the Kaaba, the Muslim thing that they all worship in the desert there and go around in a circle clockwise, or who cares? But the point is I don't know if you knew this little piece of lore, but supposedly that's a meteor. That's from
Hmm.
space supposedly.
Yes, yeah. And that slipped my mind, but that kind of just locks it in there. It seems
It's
it,
literally a black cube or square
yeah.
quadrilateral thing that is from space.
So it's and there's another group of people that straps these things to their arms. It means something to somebody out there. Certainly not me.
And don't quote me on this. I saw something online talking about how the Hilton next door, right next door to Ground Zero, where 9/11 obviously took place,
Yeah.
was modeled after the monolith in 2001. So bringing down this is how deep I went. Bringing down was some sort of occult ritual to fuse them together, and the Hilton there kind of represents now I guess it would be the Freedom Tower, but there was some sort of like nudge to the monolith, and Hilton is in this movie as well, like
It is, yeah.
so I don't know. Don't take that with a grain of salt.
Where was Larry Silverstein in 2000 and What a Space Odyssey?
Um, he was laying in the bed at the end.
That was him. Okay, good. Okay, fine. Fair enough. Yeah.
This is a
Um,
or a
Great to guys-
biopic.
yeah. Okay, we come to this part where we meet this like sort of deep state operative guy, these deep state operative guys, and we see him come to this artificial space station in the sky. And he calls his daughter. We mentioned that. Another thing, this was a fresh take. So, one of the things that he dwells on for a minute, Kubrick that being, is this notion that there's still sort of tension between Russia and America, even though this is supposedly a far-flung techno future or whatever. Um, and it really sort of when I was thinking about it yesterday, it really sort of jostled something loose in me that I hadn't really thought of prior, because I feel like particularly I know you and I, Patrick, probably you too, Bobby, but you sort of had like this rightoid sort of conception that we're sort of on track for, at some point in the future, maybe not in our lifetime but sometime in the future, that there's going to be like a one world government, and like a mask drop. There's gonna be a mask drop and a one world government, and like that's like sort of the trope that particularly people who are like interested in the
Yes, someday that will be happening.
yeah, you know what I mean. But my point is that you think that it would have happened by the time that people are going into space and going into Saturn and Jupiter and stuff like that, right? Well, it occurred to me that Kubrick very intentionally illustrated that no, that even if there is a cabal that controls the world, why would they get rid of that tool from the toolbox to enact social change when there's different competing groups of people on Earth, no matter what that identifying characteristic is? But that's such an amazing way to divide and conquer people. Even if it is indeed, and again, you were just joking, Bobby, but that'd be crazy if someday in the future we have one world government. I know, that's what I'm trying to say, but nominally we don't. We have these fucking idiot libtards going like, could you believe Putin is the president and shit like that? Like,
yeah, I think there's always going to be like the puppet show aspect of it. Like even Orwell kind of talks about it, about like, the war, the never ending war, just to keep people like occupied and scratch some sort of primordial itch, which you see a lot of that in this movie too.
Yeah.
No matter how advanced they are technologically, he's still eating food and he's still like in touch with his daughter. And then like, I thought one thing that was interesting when he's jogging through the little circular, whatever it's called, that amazing set piece where it's like the rotating.
Yeah.
He's literally shadow boxing. Who in a utopian system, like, what are you doing shadow boxing? You're supposed to be in this like this transcendent
utopian peaceful future.
Right. Shadow boxing is basically a throwback to the monkeys fighting, and not literal, but you know what I mean. Like it's like this. It's like technology will always exceed what we're hardwired to do. So there will always be those those scratches, it's just a scratch, if that makes sense.
Sure, but also you could make the case that he's going like, look, he's still human.
Yes,
He
of
still
course.
cares about his
Well,
body. He still
he
cares
hasn't
about his
evolved to do the third phase or whatever by the end of the movie. But yeah, exactly. They're
yeah,
still communicating that, like, yes, this person is still human.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, again, I don't know if it's intentional or not. I just thought it was kind of fun.
I don't think there's
Fun
anything
movie.
that's not intentional. So yes, I'm going to safely say
Just
that yeah, you
Kubrick.
picked that out.
And
um,
those in the book, I did not read it, but I have it on good authority. From
from
it's
wikipedia.org. Yes, go on.
I was gonna say like from very like 17 different freaking videos and podcasts that those are nuclear satellites.
Yes, in the book they are nuclear satellites,
Yeah.
and in fact, at the end of the book, which I have read, um, is
This,
the Star Child. Bowman has now transcended to the Star Child, and he
I
says,
don't,
"Well, now I'm going to destroy the Earth, utilizing the nuclear arsenal of the Earth to sort of bring about the new cycle of samsara, etc." And also because this Earth's better off without this nuclear arsenal too. There's another second aspect to it as well.
um, there's talk of how Kubrick didn't have any continents on the Earth at the end. Um, the the excuse for that was that at the time there had been no satellite images of Earth until what, like 72 or something. So
Whatever, yeah, the blue marble pick they call it.
yeah, he figured that you wouldn't be able to see the continents through the cloud cover. Um uh but he also said that they didn't use Saturn as the planet in the movie because the rings were too hard to replicate, which I don't
Which
believe.
is insane because they made it a fucking CGI baby.
Yeah, so which makes me wonder, I don't know if the continents not being there is but was, by necessity or, you know,
No,
yeah.
I think I heard it differently, and maybe you have it more correct. But the way I heard it was Kubrick was going back and forth as to whether he would show the continents, but he decided that he thought personally that from space you couldn't see the continents through the atmosphere, and he had no way of knowing yet because, as you said, there was no photos supposedly of the Earth from space. But he made that just artistic call to be like, I personally think, scientifically speaking, that you wouldn't be able to see the Earth from, you wouldn't be able to see the continents from the from space. That's what I heard, and I could be wrong.
Because I mean, there's a lot to read into those last shots, last couple shots of baby and Earth, and uh, it's like I said, the coldest movie ever because it leaves you with really nothing. Like what happened to Frank, or what's his face? Yeah.
He died.
He's
Oh,
dead.
He's
shit.
dead, Dave. Everybody's dead, Dave.
Duh. Yeah.
And those guys in those horrible coffin beds, yeah, they're dead too.
They're dead too, Dave. Everybody's dead, Dave.
What happened to Dave? Is Dave dead?
No,
Dave?
Dave became the Star Child.
He's a Star Child. All right. So, well, I wish him well.
Adam Star Child, by the way.
Yeah, I was thinking
You're
that too.
waiting for you to bring
Yeah.
that up. Yeah.
Wait, who's Adam? What was that? I
Adam
missed that.
Starchild is a pedophile, a convicted
Oh,
pedophile. Yeah.
yeah, got it.
Keep an eye out.
And serial fraudster who, was like the money manager for North Fox Island, this elite pedophile getaway place. And
Yep.
after he got caught by the feds, he ended up going magically being able to escape somehow to Belgium, the other place where pedophilia is basically legal.
It all comes back to pedophilia.
Yeah, pretty much.
Turtles all the way down.
Yeah, pedos all the way down. Yeah.
So,
No, but it is funny. It is Adam Star Trek, dude. It's fucking crazy. This dude named himself after this shit.
It's
it was
yeah.
everything, bro.
Yeah, I guess. Okay, so Patrick, you alluded to this before, but there's this scene where he's sort of elaborating on this tension between the Americans and the Russians, and this sort of deep state actor guy. He has a brief conversation with these Russian people, and they push him on what's going on in the moon right now because he's on his way to the moon, and they're like, is there like an epidemic or something? And he does the most CIA shit ever, which is like, I can't confirm that or deny it, essentially. Um, Basically leading credence and almost sort of low key confirming that this cover story that they do establish is a cover story in a few in the subsequent scenes, of course. But I think you correctly pointed out, Patrick, that this is a, not it's something of a predictive programming towards intelligence, particularly utilizing the rumor of a epidemic as a cover story for some more nefarious thing.
Yeah, especially, the wider the net of global technocracy, the greater gaps between people, the easier it is to, it's easy enough now, just, neighbor to neighbor. People in the same room are separated by light years of information. They could not possibly live in more distant galaxies, in their own minds. So like the fact of, it'd be perfect, it'd be plenty easy to just, convince one entire planet of people, which this rings back to Hyperion, that and another planet of people is having a whole other issue than they really are. And it's actually
Right.
much worse, and it's, it's coming for you too. Look out, it's Atom Star Child.
Yeah.
Holy
Well, so
shit.
I think there's something to that. By the way, the reason why, and I certainly I think, by the way, that this was the reason why COVID was like such an effective um op, we'll say, is that it tugs on your biological impetus here to continue existing. And I think that that's very pointed when you're talking about a movie that sort of toys with this sort of elevating beyond biological needs. um Very interesting that they utilize this as like a form of control, essentially, in order to keep people from asking questions. Now the next scene, of course, and this is to Rob Ager's point, is that these guys, the same character, the same deep state guy, who was just very hush hush about talking about this in front of the true story of what's going on the moon, air quotes, with the monolith and whatnot, is he sits there and just very frankly speaks about it in front of two low-ranking pilot guys. Now this is interesting, and then just today I have a colleague at work who has spent like 8 years or something in the Air Force, so very relevant, flying a vessel. He don't think he was a pilot. I think he was just like like a security guy or whatever. But I said, let me ask you, did your superiors ever say anything even slightly fucking sensitive around you? And he said, absolutely not. They would never ever say something even mildly sensitive in front of a lower ranking officer, even if it was not critical. But just because you're not at that pay grade, you do not find out. So I think this is and Rob Ager draws attention to this, by the way, because I think it is definitely a clue. Um, because they speak about this like supposed alien structure, the monolith being on Mars, in front of just two nobody schmuck, pilots or whatever.
What I wonder is, what was that? Did they know what they were doing, sending them to Jupiter? Were they as, because they're playing it off as a, I think them, divulging this in front of, two pilots is a way of getting it into their heads as well, that what they're seeing is alien, which is just
Correct. Bingo.
stratas of
Rumor.
yeah, perfect. Yeah. Uh, Compartmentalized rumors. And so why did they send them yeah, it leads back to they knew what I think they knew what they were doing. They knew that Jupiter is some wacky freaking place where weird shit happens. They're trying to, bring something back from Jupiter. And they
I
used it.
think there's certainly evidence to make that point. Yes. And also, I would say that there's evidence to say that the moon incident, which I'm now about to describe, which is like you sort of described it in a thumbnail just a minute ago, Patrick, where you said they all sort of wind around the monolith on the moon, and it has a weird ceremonial sort of vibe to it. It's really unsettling, that scene, don't you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, Bobby, tell me now, is that one of the scarier what do you think is the most like upsetting part of the movie to you? Because that to me is it.
Visually, yes. I think the terror in this movie that resonates with me the most is is Hal going rogue, personally.
Yeah, that's definitely the most tense aspect of the
It's,
movie.
I don't think of that. Like when I think about this movie, I see the little red dot Hal, and the just the slow burn of him reading their lips, and like, oh, this fucker's up to something.
Yeah.
And then the whole scene where he, like I had mentioned earlier, where that's my like holy shit moment. Like this is kind of scary. Like it's under the radar scary though. But yeah,
Yeah.
granted, to
It's
your
taut is the word I would use.
yeah, and one thing I wanted to just, I know we were talking about a different scene, but like
No,
Dave
go
in
ahead.
that is very composed. Like you feel like he would be freaking out a lot more, but he seems to just kind of be everyone. Everyone's very sterile. The sets are sterile and the people are sterile, and I think that that's kind of speaks to like this transitional phase in general. If you zoom out, but Dave is just kind of methodically like opening the little compartment and pulling out all the little key cards or whatever they are, the little hard drives.
Yeah.
Um, well,
Well, he doesn't want to fuck up.
well, Hal is trying to humanize himself. I thought that personally was like cerebrally scary. Uh,
Yeah.
but as far as visuals go, I would probably go with what you had mentioned.
Yeah, that is, but the whole movie. I gotta say, so yeah, we're literally coming to that part now. But there's the whole middle section of the movie, the Hal section of the movie, where like, and I think I want to say when I talked about this to William years ago, he said the movie just pumps on the brakes and suddenly becomes a like a thriller, a sci-fi thriller, and it is it sounds almost like minimizing to say that, but it's kind of elegant the way that you get to have all these different sections of the movie, and they do feel very self-contained
Yes.
and
It's almost like
it's a
it's
great
almost like
effect.
a sci-fi anthology that's kind of threaded together.
Yeah,
And with
yes,
totally.
yes. And yeah, and then I gotta say, I will say the Hal section of the movie is my favorite part of the movie. Despite the fact that you said the word methodical, I think that's a good way to put it. Because the performance is really good because it is methodical and you could see that he's almost like you can tell the character is well trained to do what he's doing,
Right.
but you can also see in his performance this terror that if he makes even the slightest mistake, it's over. And that and you could see the anger at himself, or like for instance in that scene where he goes out into the ship and realizes that Hal's fucking him now and he's stuck out in space, and you could see like when Hal says to him like, you can't do that without your space helmet, Dave. Fucking cunt, by the way. um and you could see just the as he said it, the revel like the moment of realization on his face. It's mwah, beautiful performance. It's
It's a
so
beautiful
good.
performance that balances like kind of military composed methodical guy
Yes.
that's into his training, but it still manages to communicate that level of horror. Not just what you're seeing, you see it in him as well, because
Yeah.
he is still frantic, but it's like this kind of almost this robotic response, like, okay, this is what I gotta do.
I gotta fall back on my training now.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And it's so, like I said, the word to use is taut. It's taut. The entire sequence in it's again, and this is something you could say about the whole movie, but every shot of the entire movie is so fluid and deliberate. And again, we could just talk about how amazing. I would just suck this movie's dick all night, obviously, but like it's this just it's something about the pace of everything. Some people would say it's too slow. I could see a zoomer being like, can we just watch this at 1.5?
Yeah.
But there's something just glorious about the languid amount of time every little action takes. Because it makes you feel like you're there. It makes not just makes you feel like you're there, but it makes everything all the more real. Like in these new movies, these action in like some of them have actually intelligent things to say in these movies, but the way they're shot are just fucking disgusting. Quick cuts, jump cuts, handheld camera shaking all over the
Yeah.
place in order to give this like false sense of franticness. But in these long ass, deliberate, languid, slow shots, you get so much more tension built into every single frame of this movie compared to any fucking. You know what movie I hate? Sicario. What a fucking horrible
Oh,
movie.
son of a bitch.
2001 is the gold standard of visual exposition, I would say, because
Yes.
only 40 minutes of this movie is dialogue. And like you're saying, showing a zoomer this would be a tall order, I think.
I don't think they could do it.
No, but you know it pays off so well. Not necessarily the last part, which I just recently kind of grasped, which we'll get to, but once Hal goes rogue and there's that scene, that's when I was like, I always have a moment in movies that are good ass movies that's my moment. Like, yeah, this is a pretty fucking kick
Yeah.
ass
It's
movie.
hitting me right now.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Whereas like
Are you feeling it now, Bobby?
the visuals and it's really taking its time and it's very meticulously shot and this shot composition is second to none, blah blah blah. And then you're like, well, for pure entertainment, like cathartic value, that was the
Yes.
scene where I was like, yup, this movie fucking rules. So yeah.
Yeah. Patrick,
Um,
you're gonna say something.
yeah, talking about dragging ass when he realizes Frank is free floating and the quickest he can move is still so excruciatingly slow. And it'd been a while since I'd watched this. It's been maybe 4 years now. So I'm just like,
I
come
think
on.
he knew he was dead though, right?
Well, he was still went through the trouble, risk his own life to go get him. So
I
probably,
guess it's what a sailor would do to the corpse of his buddy.
yeah. That at least. Um, I think Ager argues that Frank survives, and maybe.
I think they're in in like the third book, it turns out that they resurrect him and he's like the avatar of some. Don't even fucking ask me. It's been years since I read these corny ass books, but there is something to that. There's something to the idea that that character does go on to live in some capacity later on in the series, but again, it's not in this movie, so it's not contained within the four walls of this movie, so I'm considering it extraneous.
Frank Starchild, the less
The
illustrious
anti-Star Child.
anti-star. Yeah. So uh, when he gets locked out, he
Yeah.
forgets his keys, forgets his wallet, forgets his helmet.
Yeah.
Oh man, I hate Hal in this. I forgot how
How could
condescending.
you hate Hal? I don't hate Hal. I fear Hal, but I don't hate Hal.
You understand where he's coming from?
Yeah, I mean, literally, he explains it to you. He goes, dude, I was afraid you guys were going to shut me off.
Well, I mean,
He has no hands, Patrick.
was
He's
what
no
was
hands. Once Dave is back in the ship and there's nothing keeping him outside of the ship, it's over, Johnny. That's Hal's only manner of self-defense. And again, I don't, perhaps he misunderstands that if he had just had his shit turned off, that he could survive in some capacity or be reactivated. But imagine this is the only the only conception of reality you've ever had. And these two guys that your best buds are talking about shutting your ass off.
they were only talking about shutting his ass off because he sent them potentially.
Because he made a mistake.
he did not make a mistake. I'm spitting. I'm getting upset.
Well, I mean, that's because when he does finally kind of shut him off, or it's kind of ambiguous, to be honest, but like the video that plays, I was wondering, like, is there more explanation in the book or something of that? You know, the video that comes up of like the little like colonel guy or whatever talking about like
I do think there's an ambiguity to it, but I believe what the explanation is this was what was going to play when they arrived with Hal in tow to
Oh,
them once they were at a point where they could feel comfortable that the overlords could tell them what they were really there to do.
gotcha. I thought it was like a kind of play this in case of someone freaks out video. That's what I
No,
mean.
I don't think that they ever intended Hal legitimately malfunctioned in some way. I think that Hal malfunctioning is some greater thing in the scheme of things. It certainly wasn't the machinations of the people back on Earth.
Okay, okay, gotcha. I have alien brain, and I watch Alien
Yeah.
fucking all the time, and yeah, that's where my head goes. Okay.
Right. Oh, I see what you're saying. The evil corporation
Yeah,
actually did
yeah,
this
yeah,
to fuck them
exactly.
over. No, it's not that. I don't think. I don't think. But who the
You're
fuck
probably right.
knows? I mean, this is all just our interpretation, so who knows? But yeah, so again, another thing is seems really obvious, and I know that all three of us knew this shit prior to us talking about this movie, but Hal is obviously IBM. IHABML.
Yes.
Hal IBM. And indeed, by the way, the idea for this part of the movie, its genesis is Arthur C. Clarke and Kubrick were invited to the IBM labs to just check out these new computers, and they showed them one of the demonstrations they did for them was I don't know, it's probably sitting right here on Wikipedia, but IBM 650 or 750, I don't remember what the name of the serial number or whatever was, but this is the computer that sang Daisy Bell, the song that that Hal sings as he's dying, as Dave shuts him down. And it is a direct reference to the IBM labs in which they, this was obviously like a deep reference for those in the know about computers. Because, I mean, this wasn't something that the news just talked about.
What's the significance there? Because I read something that's probably can go in tandem with what you're saying, but what is the song have to do with IBM?
No, the song is just that the guy who programmed the IBM computer was like, "Oh, here's a simple song that I could program musically into this computer to sing." This was the first time that they were ever to get it. They call it Vocaloid. So it's Microsoft
Oh,
Sam is one
yeah,
of
yeah,
them.
yeah.
I used to play around with them as a kid all the time. Vocorder is another way to put it, I suppose.
No, Kraftwerk. Yeah, I got it.
Yeah, exactly. Like Kraftwerk, exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But so this is the very first time that they ever utilized this. The programmer was just like, "Oh, let's do this, folk song from the 1890s, Daisy Bell on a bicycle built for two." Everyone knows the song.
I was reading something. I say reading. I read this on TV. I read this on YouTube. That song is about marriage, evidently.
Yes, it won't be a stylish marriage. I can't afford a carriage, but you'll look sweet upon the seat of a bicycle built for two.
But that plays to the theme of like the union
Didn't even think about it, but yeah, you got something to it.
the reproduction into the next phase of humanity and all that shit. So.
Well, I think you're onto something there. It's possible that certainly the IBM people, and by the way, here's a little fucking thing here. Louis C.K.'s mother, do you know what her profession was by any chance?
Yeah, she was
A computer programmer at the Harvard labs, the same ones where they made the fucking Daisy Bell computer.
I'm going to say sex kitten, but that works too.
No, and also I'm pretty sure his dad was a Trotskyite who had escaped the Soviet Union, after the Stalin Trotsky purges, so it's all spooked out, spooks all the way down, dude. My point to say that is, and by the way, we just talked about the Lutz Dambeck documentary, Das Netz. And they talk about DARPA, or ARPANET, I should say, the formation of the first internet. Who do you think these people are? It's all people who they plucked out of
Project.
various labs at different tech companies, and put them on the payroll of the Department of Defense because these were the best and brightest in America. And yeah, there's just like this absolute incest, if you will, between the tech industry and intelligence, military intelligence, and like the civilian CIA intelligence, law enforcement intelligence. It's completely incestuous. There's nearly no dividing line between these two or three cliques, I guess.
The impetus for Das Nets was literally the question, why was there such a pattern in language between the hippies and these computer people, and it comes from the fact that, I mean, we just see it right here with, the intersection is right there with Kubrick, and the fact that, no one else can, I mean, in that same documentary, I forget the mathematician who was saying that, all of these mathematics that,
Yeah, the Jewish guy who stayed in Nazi Germany through the World War II, and they didn't give him trouble.
I mean, he kept to himself.
You're one of the good ones.
Well, it's almost like there's some myths that persist from that era. I'm just saying, but go on. Yes, you were saying the Patrick.
Yeah,
I don't
so
remember the guy's. It's Hans something or other. I can't remember what his name is, but yeah, Von Rossler or something maybe.
it's across the room, damn it. I have it somewhere, but
Whatever. Watch the
he,
Dust Net documentary. Come around with him.
yeah, and he just basically, shows his hand and says that all of this math is storytelling. It's telling a good story. It's getting people to go along with the convolution that, takes you from A through Z to B. So uh, I think I think we should not ever neglect that fact that the people that make our art are, very essential to the prevailing, structure.
Scientific narratives that we're all expected to believe by law.
The Big Bang. I think, is it fair to say that the thing that right after the symmetrical light show, are we treated to the Big Bang?
Yes.
Yeah, I figured.
I think it's something of an Akira moment where a new universe is birthed almost. Um,
Should hit the bell.
perhaps it isn't a physical universe. Um, I think this is a Jay Dyer bit here, but the space in Space Odyssey is not outer space. It's quite literally space, like the three-dimensional space, because the Odyssey is the film is basically the creation of a whole new plane of existence, really. In at the end here, as you mentioned, we're treated to a big bang of sorts. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely, definitely, it kicked STEM into high gear, I'm sure, for many
for
years.
sure, for
Absolutely.
sure.
It gave a, which actually, I think the biggest audience for this was like hippies.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently, like it was initially not very well received, and then the LSD crowd got a hold of it and
Yeah.
kind of started to revere it.
Loved it.
Got some
Yeah.
traction.
Yeah, man, there's an intermission, like an hour and 30
For you to
in.
go smoke weed, yeah.
All right.
Don't
Is
even,
the intermission right before or right after the? I think it's right before the
Hal
whole.
freak out.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so you're good and paranoid after you just went to go rip a fucking joint outside, and now you're getting to see the fucking AI make you paranoid, make your boomer addled brain paranoid about robots for the rest of all mankind. It's very funny. That reminds me, just pointedly reminds me of I have a boomer family member of mine was going like, well, man, it's basically over. I mean, AI's driving all the cars. There's not going to be any jobs anymore. And I go, dude, you realize that's just an Indian guy looking through a camera driving the car, right? And he goes to me, oh my God, are you serious? oh, I feel so much better. I was so afraid that like industry was over essentially. And he goes, wow, that's great. We're gonna be fine. And I go, yeah, I know.
We're gonna
Don't
make it,
worry
man.
about it.
We're gonna make it. Yeah.
But you can't divorce that from this movie, though, can you?
That's just such a funny thing to say. I drove to work this morning. Not every car is being piloted by Indians. We're gonna be okay.
I know, but
I drove very dangerously to work this morning. All
good
right.
for you. You're doing the Lord's work.
A human being. Um, uh, yeah,
And a
no.
real hero.
Where's my toothpick? Um, can we send Ryan Gosling? They already did, didn't they? He was in a space movie,
He
right?
was in Blade Runner, which is
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
fucking esoteric itself.
I've never
Solid little sequel.
did
I
you
guess I didn't love it, but let's not get down that rabbit
Yeah,
hole.
yeah. I didn't want to.
Yeah.
um
um
at some point I want to get into where Space Odyssey ranks for you gentlemen.
I think yeah, that's the last thing we do. But yeah, I think we're doing pretty good time, and I think we're getting through it pretty good now. So we covered one thing I do want to say is Bobby, you sort of alluded to this a minute ago, but like one of the sort of visceral things that the film does to you is, you're sort of put in not Dave's POV per se, but like you certainly empathize with his hesitation
He's the only
to
human.
shut. Yeah, Hal is begging for his life basically, and Hal sucks. He tried to kill Dave, and that certainly activated his survival instincts, of course. But at the same time, it's really hard to have a human voice begging your forgiveness, whether or not it's actually a human being. Um, and continue to do what the thing that they're begging you not to do, So that is definitely has a real visceral effect on me when that part of the movie happens, of course. And yeah, that's just again, there's so much just that's surface level and it just works so good, There's nothing esoteric about that at all. It's just surface level and it's brilliant.
Agreed.
Yes. Yeah. It really was something to hear. Dave, did he say, Dave, you're hurting me?
Yeah, that I know it's not you're hurting me. I said that hurts me, I think.
That's
Yeah.
long hole, Dave. Um,
Oh, on that note, when he's starting to shut down Dave or Hal,
Mm-hmm.
it almost, I mean, he's starting to, and he's talking real slow. Hal starts kind of
Yeah, he's
reminiscing
powering
about
down.
his origin story, almost like this kind of parallel or allegory for like your life flashing before your eyes is something I picked up. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it, but
No,
he's
no, yeah, that's definitely something. Yeah.
okay, cool. Yeah.
But it reminded me of Akira a lot because it was like, early 90s, like and it's like, oh, in 1992 I was born in a of course he uses the word born, by the way, in order to sort of tug on Dave's heartstrings to be like, I'm a person. I have feelings. I was born and I was taught to me as a child. The song was taught to me as a child. And yeah, it really works. But yeah, I definitely think that there's something to the idea that like, oh, he really is trying to put on the waterworks is to be like, look, I really am human. I'm dying, and you're making my life flash before my eyes. Definitely, definitely, definitely there. Um, so okay, then the final segment of the film is the Jupiter and Beyond. As I mentioned before, Dave is it's very what's the word? Oblique, I guess. The entire thing is it's not exactly clear what's going on, but primarily I think the motifs that you need to keep an eye out for is I do think that there's definitely a visual illusion that once he starts traveling into the monolith, I don't think there's getting around the idea that it's supposed to sort of at least somewhat resemble like computer circuits, computer files, sort of like a hyperspeed what do you call it, information highway kind of thing. Uh, and I think that's definitely speaks to this like sort of I think they were sort of planting this much later much latter day goofy ass we live in a simulation, man thing. Certainly there's it's planting this sort of seed subtly into the zeitgeist. The other thing is that I think that, and Rob Ager points this out, is that there's a very pointed 90-degree turn about halfway through this sequence where all of the as he enters the monolith, it is pretty apparently vertical in the way that we normally see the monolith standing upright as it appeared to the ape people, but then also as it appeared on the moon. But certainly in the midst of this scene, it's definitely turns 90 degrees, and like these walls of light that were just going vertically are now going horizontally, which will come into play in just a moment, of course, where we just, yeah. Another thing is this other motif that you will find in other Kubrick movies, the seven diamonds shapes. I think you can find an example of it in nearly all of his films, certainly all of his color films. And again, this is not original to me, but I have it on good authority that the seven diamonds is there to represent the seven planetary gods, you know, the main gods of the Roman / Greek pantheon that we understand to be the first seven planets of the solar system other than Earth.
If man is 5 and the devil is 6, then God is 7.
There you go.
To make it, I think he was nodding the Pixies.
Yeah, he was doing a Pixies reference. Yes.
Predictive program Pixies.
But it is worth mentioning here that that is like a Neoplatonic, or Platonic, I should say, going all the way back to, you know, Plato, is this notion that the number 7 is holy, it's of God, and it's because originally in the pagan mythos, that is related to the 7 primary planetary gods that, again, Bobby, you brought it to my attention that that space station that we very vaginally see penetrated with that ship at the very beginning of the movie. If you look at it from, you know, bird's eye view, it very pointedly is the same alchemical sigil for the planet Jupiter. And I'll put that in on the thumbnail just to drive that point home of the episode. But so I think there's definitely this, and Wiedner is the one who first came up with this, by the way. It's not he's the first guy to draw these conclusions. The 7 planetary deities is possibly is the 7 diamonds. The other thing is that and I'll show this picture now. I showed you guys this before we actually started recording, but there's this very pointed shot here near the beginning. This is in the Dawn of Man segment of the film. Now, see, this yellow writing is me. I did this.
That's not Kubrick.
No, Kubrick is not this on the nose. But this here is in that scene, the beginning of the film, in the Dawn of Man portion of the film. This was a shot of the what do you call it? The
Monolith.
The monolith, idiot. It's the whole point of the movie.
We said it 1,000 times.
I know. But it's tilted in this way in order to evoke this pyramid with no cap on it, which is in the alchemical mythos, I guess, or the Platonic mythos, is a symbol for the alchemical process. Of course, everybody knows about Merlin being an alchemist. One of the highest aims of the alchemist is to turn lead into gold. The pyramid with no cap, as the kids say, being, of course, symbolic of the, you know, the path towards perfection as a alchemist, where the top of the pyramid will be provided by alchemy, you know, like we're literally going to do a magic spell to make that at the top. And of course, everybody knows this circle. I mean, this eyeball here I drew was sort of just to illustrate what I'm trying to do here. I don't think that the eyeball is necessary. I think that's Masonic. I'm not sure that it has anything to do with hermetic magic or nothing.
It's how.
Yeah, I was going to
Could be
say.
Hal though too. Yeah, Hal's looking out
Yeah.
at us.
Could be a dome.
But yeah, I think this symbolism is unrefutable. And I think if you're going to ignore this, you're willfully doing so. Um and I mean, look, it's a gold is coming up out of this. Again, it's the out this is symbolic of the process of alchemy where you're creating gold from lead, and it's a process. And look, there's a golden sun emerging out of the top of the pyramid. Okay, you get it. You get what I'm trying to say here.
Very good.
But what was I going to say? Oh. So okay, and then as we mentioned before, he goes into the the Matrix there, and then he comes out as, oh yeah, I forgot, the Victorian Hotel. Of course, it's sort of, it's largely three shots in the entire sequence. The first one being Dave arriving in his spacesuit, and he walks into the next room, which by the way is a bathroom. As I mentioned, it's definitely a direct allusion to the biological processes. And the next time it shows him, he's now an older man, and he is a much older man, I should say, and he's eating food. Again, real food, not this goop that they've been eating throughout the whole movie. This is real food on a plate with forks and knives and shit. And then the other thing, this is Rob Ager's insight, is as his hand reaches the edge of the frame of the film, meaning like right the most extreme part of, like, if you were sitting in the theater, it's almost as if he's going to touch the edge of the screen. At that moment, he knocks the wine glass on the floor, and it shatters, and there's a nice insert shot there of it on the floor. And I agree with the Rob Ager take that this is the shattering of the metaphor between the monolith, again, now I'm forgetting the word, and what it is really representative of, which is, I think, again, this is not the full interpretation, of course, but this is the Rob Ager interpretation, is that it is representative of the movie screen itself. And in going beyond that, it is also representative of the lies in which are projected onto the movie screen of propaganda that pushes our society in the direction that the elites want to. And again, we talked all about this with Johnny last week, by the way, the subtle ways that at the time in the 1960s when this movie came out, the silver screen was the primary way that propaganda was presented to people. And I think it's very beautiful that, again, so the Rob Ager thing is like, so basically the monolith is representative of a big movie screen that you, the audience, apes crowd around and are lied to by these people who come down on high.
I think there was a time when it was being considered to make the monolith an actual screen.
Yes,
But,
that was the screenplay. Yes,
right. That's what it is. I like everything you just said. Here's what I gathered, and again, not an original observation or connection, but the
please,
other
please.
theory I've heard is the breaking of the glass is yet another marriage motif.
Okay. Oh yeah, Jews smash the glass when they get married.
The union of man in the reproductive kind of themes, and in emerging into two becoming one kind of thing. So
I think it could be both things.
I think it'd be both at the same time, completely. This scene I really like, and this is the one that I was always like, "What the fuck is this movie?" Like,
me too. Until this viewing, pretty much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Until this viewing, like, oh, this is pretty easy. But I like, this is the most familiar, like, to the everyday person, like the furniture, the art on the wall, even though they have weird,
The
like,
checkerboard floor. Hmm.
well, there's, yeah, okay. Yeah, but my point is, I think that this realm that he's in, whatever, this room, is visually representative of like it's almost like high society, or like the peak of man in his current form before he
Sure.
transcends into, because it's like good art on the wall, and it's like
Yeah.
comfortable beds, and it's good food, and like, okay, we've mastered this phase of evolution,
Hmm.
and then he's literally on his it's literally on his deathbed by the end of the
Yeah.
movie.
At the last shot of this sequence, yeah. And then of course it resulting in his rebirth as the Star Child, of course. And I do think there's something to that too, what you're just saying there, Bob. But because it's almost like he's saying goodbye to these biological urges. He goes
Mm.
into the bathroom one last time. He sits down and eats one last time. He lays in his bed and perishes one last time before he is rebirthed into the new universe as the Star Child, and ushering in this new epoch of humanity in whatever fucking perverse configuration you desire.
Kubrick himself used the word Superman in a phone interview to describe what this transition was supposed to be.
Was this the Japanese one?
Yeah, yeah. They got it out of him. Go
It's
figure.
so like when I was watching this last night, before I did all my research today, so I wouldn't be too influenced or whatever. When I was watching it by this, was like the whole time I'm just going, this is just Nietzsche. This is Nietzsche.
Yeah.
This movie's fucking Nietzsche. And I'm not even that versed in Nietzsche, but it was like, so I was like, am I crazy or is this Nietzsche? And they're like, sure enough, it's like, yeah, it's all Nietzsche. A
Yeah.
lot of it is, at least. A big part of it is.
Yeah, one of the key, and again, by the way, Patrick and I are reading a Nietzsche book for a future episode. And I just read Gay Science, so just radio spoiler. But the one of the major things is, this sort of like radical individual liberation, if you will, is one of the underpinning things. And yeah, you can't escape that. You literally, it's one guy transcending through into an individual universal Superman,
Echoes the, what in our own reality, hyper reality, Armstrong, one small step for man, that whole,
Mhm.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, good
Now,
point.
is there a overarching Project Paperclip space travel Ubermensch Nazi thing going on here as well? I'm just spitballing at this point.
I doubt that Kubrick would, because he's Jewish.
Right, that's true.
But I doubt it. I'll just say that. I don't know. Who knows? I think Nietzsche is very important to leftism as well. I mean, he is like known as being like, today he's probably most discussed by leftists to talk about how great trannies are and shit.
Bingo. That's his legacy. That's
That's what I choose to believe. Yeah.
yeah.
Um
No, I think there's a lot of, like you said saying earlier, the whole Marx Nietzsche thing, the hate, even hate,
yeah.
like all fucking, yeah.
It's all got this sort of
Ooh,
process theology
yeah.
embedded in it. And yeah, so oh, but just to finally put the whole Ager thing to bed. So yes, Patrick.
Are we moving from the hotel room? And
Yeah, if you have anything to say about it, please. Yeah.
yeah, dwell in the hotel room for another moment or so, because it just the whole time I was watching it this time around, I was thinking about The Shining and how Kubrick seems to, have a fixation on hotel rooms or like
Yeah, they're kind of liminal.
Weeks.
suites. Yeah, yeah. Suites nicer. Yeah, it gives you more room to play with and fit camera equipment in.
Film. Yeah, yeah. Exactly.
So like, I mean, there's The Shining, there's this. Are there any other Kubrick films where like there's these really weird like paraliminal happenings going on, and like in Eyes Wide Shut, maybe you could
I think
say.
there is a hotel scene in Eyes Wide Shut, a hotel
Oh,
room scene.
yeah.
I
And
think. I haven't seen that in a long time.
I mean,
I
you could
don't
just
remember.
everything's a penthouse,
Right.
so
Well,
I
there you
mean,
go.
it seems like and this one thing I love about the Shining book is how it goes so much into why the Overlook Hotel is this nexus for all.
Mhm.
Supernatural shit.
Yeah. And Kubrick actually he recreated a scrapbook full of all of, the kind of, none of this makes it into the movie. Like I'm sure dozens, of hours went into making shit that had nothing to do with what came on the screen.
Fun
So
fact: there's an entire origin story of the blowjob furry from The Shining in the book. Like, there's a few pages that kind of explain that whole thing.
could you remind the folks at home, myself, even though I read it, but
In the scene in the movie where Shelley Duvall's running around and freaking out, she sees
yeah.
like off the distance and it zooms in on like that guy getting blown by like a Winnie the Pooh looking furry.
Mm.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
book.
Yes, of course. How could I forget that? I thought that was
I
in
don't remember all the details
I
of
thought
it.
that
And
was in Eyes Wide Shut. But
I
yeah,
thought
you're
that
right.
was my own childhood memory.
what's that?
Shit. Never. All right, continue. I'm sorry. I thought
Anyway,
that
I didn't mean to go on a side. I just thought it was relevant and kind of a fun fact. But anyway,
I'd like to know how it gets explained. I don't want to crack that.
I don't even remember. I read that literally last year. I don't remember exactly what it was.
I read that literally 20 years ago. I want to say, like, yeah.
9 years ago for me. Yeah, so I'm
Yeah.
total. Yeah. That's worth an episode, The Shining, especially the film. But I just found it interesting if folks at home, want to, pile on with any other hotel uh room type happenings in Kubrick.
Stuff.
But as you were, sorry.
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say, just to put the bow on the whole Rob Ager thing, I just think, well, first of all, let's just go through the evidence here. Um, I mentioned before, the film begins with 3 minutes, and you, as an audience member in 1968, when you go see this movie, you sit and stare at a big black rectangle while this score plays,
Yeah.
and then only 10 minutes later into the film, apes sit around and stare at a large black rectangle where the very same audio is playing.
What was this?
And then at the end of the movie, they do it again, by the way.
1968? Was this 68?
It was 68, yeah.
Hold on, I'm gonna check it. Keep going.
But my point is clearly he's calling you an ape for sitting through this goofy ass propaganda film about the space race and getting upset about the Russians maybe getting the space before us when Kubrick, of all people, knew better than anybody that ain't nobody going to space. Ain't nobody going to fucking into maybe to space, maybe even to the moon, but certainly not other fucking solar systems and universes. Planets is pretty fucking out there, honestly, given the limited technological capacities we still have 50 fucking years later, nearly.
Yeah. No chance. Not while we still have two arms, two legs, two eyes. Yeah.
Yeah, until
That'll
we're the ousters.
yeah,
When we start
that'll change.
ousting, yeah.
That has to change before, not has to, but it would before we ever got to freaking Uranus.
Interstellar, or particularly in the space between like solar systems,
Uh, I mean, we're not going to get into space talk too much more than, I mean, now's the time, but was this, really just to make people okay with however many billions of dollars were just being pumped into, supposedly being shot into the atmosphere?
I go with a resounding yes on that.
Yeah, well, certainly they spent a lot of money. Fuck this movie. Forget this. Pretend this movie never existed. Think of all the other money they spent to do that very thing.
Oh, sure. Oh my God. Oh, dude, they just burned the shit. Meanwhile, I got a bucket of coins over there.
I know, yeah. Well, the reality is, and I've said this plenty of times, in my opinion, they did not spend that money on sending people into the atmosphere. They spent that money on doing regime changes all over the world and facilitating the world narcotics, trade and child trafficking trade for the highest bidder, no matter where it is on the planet. That's really what they use that money for.
Space.
Yeah, space, the secret space program,
Well, at least they're putting it to use for something, I just don't,
true.
that's just a shame. Shit. The bathroom protocol. That one shot is very funny to me, where he's just standing outside the bathroom reading.
Yeah, I think that's like a bit from the book actually, because if I'm not mistaken, there's a like entire chapter devoted to how you use the bathroom in space, and it's like played for a laugh in the book. So I think like that's like a visual joke to be like, well, it's pretty funny. You see him standing there like stroking his chin, being like,
Yes.
how do I use this shitter?
How do I not get sucked
Poop
out?
and pee all over me. Yeah.
How do I not get my ass sucked into space? I
Right.
should, yeah. Um,
Let me think. Is there anything else I want to get to? But yeah, okay. Let's sort of put a bow on this. So, do I think that the totality of the analysis is that because okay, Rob Ager's entire thing is, yeah. You know all that stuff about transhumanism, aliens, fucking, alchemical, blah de blah. Yeah. Throw that all out the window. He's making fun of you and saying, "Look at you, monkey. You're falling for all this horse shit on the screen." I don't know if I buy that interpretation, frankly. And maybe I'm putting a little, maybe I'm taking it a little further than he would take it. I don't know.
I
Whatever. It's
like it
my
though.
show.
I'm a fan of that interpretation.
I'm a fan of that interpretation too. I just don't necessarily agree with it as in its totality. I think it would be foolish to ignore the very. I mean, why would Kubrick, if Kubrick is just trying to thumb his nose at the audience for buying into this horse shit, why would he take such painstaking efforts to make like such a perfectly esoterically symbolic piece of cinema? Why would he do that? It doesn't make
He,
sense.
he he is a known absurdist, and you see that with Doctor
That's
Strangelove.
true. That's
So
true.
I don't know. Maybe this is a big like sophisticated parody to kind of
Troll.
like
Yeah.
troll the audience. Yeah, I don't
Or
know.
to
but
troll. I think Ager's take is more like he's trolling the he's sort of trolling the investors as it were, to be like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm gonna make this movie that you guys have all this stuff that you want to put in there, but I'm gonna put a code in there that if you're high IQ enough, you can sort of work out that it's, I'm telling you, it's all bullshit.
totally. I mean, we talked with that yeah, we talked about that way earlier. Like, what is he? Is he doing the bidding of these people, and or also
Yeah.
kind of wink, wink, nod, nod. Here's why you're ridiculous, kind of thing. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't know, but I will say this is I have to I if I was to give a generous interpretation to Kubrick, I would say it's both. First of all, it's he wants to. I think he's something of an adherent to this whole woo woo
Yeah,
thing. If I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I don't agree with Rob Ager that he's some rebel who's some Prometheus, some artistic Prometheus bringing the light of the of revelation to us in order to free us from our bonds. No, fuck that. That's stupid. But um I do think, I mean, like, listen, for those with eyes to see, you can
yeah,
see some of the things he's trying to say is that, hey, maybe when the authorities, maybe when Joe Rogan's saying that, hey, we're all just apes, man, maybe take that with a grain of salt. And here's who's doing it, and here's what they believe. Maybe there's a little of that. And here's what maybe we are. Here's who's doing it, us, and here's what we believe. Maybe is that's what he's saying. I don't know. But again, it's all open to interpretation. Anything else you guys want to get on that, and then we'll get into rankings and our overall. Again, I think you're on. I think I agree with you, Patrick. We should talk about how this falls in with our other Kubrick enjoyment. But any other things before we really wrap up, put a bow on the entire analysis? Anything else you guys had on your docket that you wanted to get to?
uh, I I thought it was funny. This poor guy isn't getting paid properly.
Who?
I think it was Frank. He's laying on the bed talking to his family, and they're like, "And don't worry, we were talking to the people over at the space building, and they're gonna get you your back pay."
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Oh, it's like, oh, great, great. 2001, and I still can't get paid properly. Uh,
Yeah. Another thing was it was his birthday that they were talking to him on, and also when that deep state guy talks to his daughter, it's on her birthday as well. And I have to imagine the birthday thing is in Satanism, and in LaVeyan Satanism at least, the birthday is the biggest holiday of the year. It's your birthday. That's why they, their big holiday of the year is LaVey's birthday or Crowley's birthday, or, in some of those process sects, the ones, probably the one that David Berkowitz was in, by the way, they celebrated Hitler's birthday even.
I think about this a lot. I kind of grew up like I don't kind of make fun of like my more evangelical friends that weren't allowed to watch certain movies because there's like Luciferian agendas behind them and whatnot.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, oh yeah, they were totally fucking right this whole time. Like that guy's crazy Christian mom like was definitely on something. So
I have two minds of it because on one hand like of course obviously they're right about it being evil and devilish and whatever, but at the same time it's like that doesn't mean you can't like watch the movie.
oh, I agree. Yeah, I agree, but I'm also like, yeah, it's still fucking kind of badass. Like,
I
I
know.
like Slayer. Like, what do you want? I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so yeah, so let's do scores. Bobby, are you familiar with the Cinema Apocalypse Now rating system? I think you are. I think we've talked about this
Yeah,
before.
but remind me for the folks at home.
For the folks at home, it's a 1 out of 10 scale.
Right.
A 1 being the worst movie ever made. There should be one. Ideally, there should be one movie that's one.
Eight Geniuses 2 is number.
Super Babies, of course.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's a this movie. Anyway, go ahead.
But 10 should be like there should be very few 10s essentially
Yeah, yeah,
because it's a real market quality. And 5 would be the number that you would consider to be the minimum for a recommendation for you to watch.
Okay.
So, Bobby, given those parameters, what would you give this film?
I'm gonna go like a hard 9, if not 9.5. Because I think the reason it's that high is because I think it is basically a perfect movie. It checks all the boxes. There's a lot to draw from it. There's a lot to read from it if you want to. It's also enjoyable just to sit back and kind of like experience it. That's one thing I want to do is go back and watch this now and just kind of watch it as a like
Popcorn movie.
member and not try to fucking pick everything apart, which is hard for me to do. The reason I won't give it a solid 10 is because it's not something I'm going to throw on all the time. Like maybe this is like a once a year watch for me, if that. But visually, I think it's one of the most, like I said, the gold standard of visual filmmaking. Okay, let me put it this way. If you don't want to draw things from it, it's a 7.5. If you do want to draw things from it, I'm saying
Well said.
it's a 9.
Yeah. I like that. That is a good point. Yeah. Patrick, comment?
I appreciate what Bobby did there. That's a good way to put it.
Having your cake and eating it too.
Yeah. I sit at 8.5 with this for that reason. Well, yeah, 8.5. 8. Sorry, folks. 8. Because it's not something I just want to throw on. I should not have I fell asleep watching it last night, which speaks to, some parts of it. And that's, I shouldn't watch things at midnight, in the dark. That's my own fault. Bobby, you were gonna
I
say?
was just gonna say I feel very similar. Like it's very similar to like Miles Davis's Bitches Brew. It's like, yeah, it's a good fucking album, but like I'm not a jazz head. I'm not gonna throw this on in the car or whatever. It's not
Actually, that's a great place to put it. If you're going to listen to that kind of
That's
music,
true,
the
but you know what I'm
driving is
saying,
kind
like,
of the dude.
you got to be in the mood for it. You got to be like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be like a fucking intellectual and fucking really try to absorb
Smoke
it.
cigs.
And sometimes I'm like, I'm watching Commando. You guys can go fuck yourself. So I don't know, like that kind of thing. Anyway, cut you off. You inspired that though.
That's great. Yeah, I think Oh, by the way, if you're gonna listen to that era of Miles Davis, folks, listen to Live Evil. That's the album. That's good shit. That's really good. You put that on at night, drive around really fast.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't want to put this on all the time. This is a reason I haven't watched this in several years. But I will watch Paths of Glory. Uh, I'll watch The Killing. I'll watch The Shining. I'll watch Full Metal Jacket. Much more regularly than I'll watch this because, I don't. There's nothing. Like I said, this is a very cold movie. Yeah. You called it sterile, which, yeah,
I think it's intentionally sterile.
absolutely, yeah.
Kind of ironic given the reproductive quality to it, but
Shit, that's funny, yeah.
It's not one to watch if you want to turn your brain off and have a fun Friday
yeah,
night.
agree with that. Yeah.
And your turn with the kids on the weekend or whatever. It's not like, hey guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not put this on in front of a baby. Ever.
I think it'd be fine. There's nothing objectionable in it.
No, not it gets to the end, the friggin' lights. That kid's gonna be
Epileptic.
yeah, he's gonna have problems. You can't put that in front of a
All
child.
right. Well,
I'm kidding, but
jokes on you. But if I ever have a kid, that's all he's gonna watch nothing but 2001. I'm just kidding.
he's just sitting in the baby carrier, just on the living room floor in front of the TV in the dark room. Space Odyssey's banging.
Just floating.
But yeah. So for me, yeah, I don't know if I could give it. I definitely can't give it a 10. But yeah, I guess I'd give it a 9, just a 9. I again, to your point, Bobby. Here's the thing. I only watch movies like I'm gonna lock in and fucking pick it apart. That's the only way I watch. I don't watch movies for the most part to fucking relax. I don't. I just don't. Anymore, I guess I should say. If it's a movie, it's like my father-in-law calls it a check your brain at the door movie. I'm just not gonna watch it. I'm just not. I'm like, unless it's like unless it's got nostalgic value to me or something. Or it's like a
Film in
favorite.
general for me is it just has to be interesting, and I watch a lot of really bad movies just because it is interesting how bad they are.
There's something to that, yeah.
But yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm kind of like that with books. Like I can't read for pleasure. I read to get paranoid about shit, basically.
Yeah, same, yeah. So I guess it's not like something that I would put against. Like, oh, I just want to veg, man. I'll just watch fucking King of the Hill if I want to veg. Like, but so to that end, I wouldn't give it two different scores. However, the pace is there. The pace is a thing. Like, and it is slow. And you have to be in the mood to want to watch this film, period. You have to be like in the mood for this.
If I may finish this one thing, don't watch the beginning at night and don't watch the end in the morning. Because I did today. You don't want to watch this right before sun's coming up.
Oh, see, I actually watched on Sunday night. I watched the first half up until the intermission, and then I was like, I'm so tired, I have to go to bed. And then in the morning, I picked up from the whole Hal thing.
Jeez, that's no way to start the morning.
I mean, I've also seen this movie like 80 times. So
oh yeah,
for what it's
I'd watched it the day before, and I was like, I'll watch it again. But it really is a stressor first thing in the morning when you're sitting through it, and you kind of have to acquiesce to the film in a way where you give yourself over.
Well, yeah, the pace does that. It really, it's like it's very you do have to acquiesce because it goes, okay, I know you might want to get on with this next scene, but I'm sorry, we have things to do in between now and then. Like,
you're going to have to wonder, you're going to have to hold your breath. I'm sure plenty of people practice holding their breath for as long as Dave was floating around in that
little airlock. Yeah,
it's not a movie; it's an experience.
Man, yeah. I agree. But yeah, I can't give it a perfect score, just because of like the pace, I guess, and you just got to be in the right kind of mood. And
Not
also
a
just
date movie, by the way. Don't have some girl over and be like, hey, let's.
a girl you've already
actually
been with a while.
It's boring. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it could be a makeout movie. You're right, but I will say, so yeah, to that end, I got to give it a 9. But again, and the reason why I really settle on like certainly lower than 10 is because I do think there are Kubrick movies that are 10s. I think
Oh,
Doctor Strangelove is a 10. I think Shining's 10. Shining's a 10, yeah. Um
yeah, Shining attends, yeah.
and I think I like this better than Full Metal Jacket though.
Uh,
Nothing against Full Metal Jacket, I just find this more enjoyable, I guess.
Nobody
Metal
remembers
Jacket.
the second half of Full Metal Jacket.
Yeah, I like the second half of Full Metal
Yeah,
Jacket, but
it's a trope though. Yeah.
yeah, a
I
lot of people do
say
say
that
that. I know,
Casablanca
yeah.
definitely. I think he's top in the top 3 Kubricks of all time pretty easily.
Yeah.
Is 2000.
Easy, easy,
But
easy.
can we, no one talks about Paths of Glory. I love Paths of
I
Glory.
like Paths of Glory, sure. I just think it's a little
Ham. It's a little on the
it insists
yeah,
upon itself.
Didn't he do
that's fine.
Spartacus as well?
Yeah,
Is that one of
yeah.
his first movie? Yeah, that's crazy.
Spartacus, yeah, Spartacus is great. I'd say I like Spartacus better than Paths of Glory.
I haven't watched Spartacus in so long.
Spartacus is very good.
He did it begrudgingly, apparently. My cat is
No,
falling.
it's not that he did it begrudgingly. I think he did it willingly, but then they had so many things they piled on, so many needs for him, and then he was mad that they had so many notes for him, I think.
That's
They
what
want
created him as the Kubrick we know him.
Yeah, I think that is part of his like filmmaker genesis is that like he was pissed off about that, and so when he the direct sequel or direct follow up to Spartacus was Paths of Glory, and again I think it's a little fart smelly as a result because he was bucking against that studio control thing.
um
Word.
yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. When you say it like that, it makes sense in the timeline. Um, the killing is great though. If you're just
I
looking
don't
for
know that I've seen that one actually. I'll have to see it.
a great little heist movie, definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, I think we talked about this enough. And again, it's as we sort of, I don't know if we said this on air, but we were saying this is like probably one of the most discussed films of all time. So, so let's not overly dwell on it. But, Bobby, please let the audience know what you'd like to promote.
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I obviously I help out Monica Perez on her show, so check her out. I know she's been on here several times. And then also I have a movie podcast called Not for Everyone, Not for Everyone podcast. If you search for it, search for Not for Everyone podcast movies, because there's another one of two ladies talking about lady things. That's not me.
Okay.
The premise really is
I thought
just
it was maybe before you transitioned.
yeah. No, I detransitioned since we started it, but no, the premise is really just not nearly as sophisticated as the conversation we just had. It's really just two 40-something man children discussing mostly cult horror sci-fi movies, a lot of B movies, schlock nonsense movies, and really just more or less using it as a vehicle to explore our very flawed friendship. It's though we do talk about the movie, but it's a lot of yelling. If you like dudes yelling, talking smack,
I
and
do.
vulgar curse words and references, not for everyone podcast.
Would you say it's not for everyone?
Not for everyone. It's a double entendre. It's the podcast is not for everyone, so that's your trigger warning. But also the movies we discuss
Right.
for everyone that's
Good
kind
point.
of the thing we were going for.
Not for me, I will say. If I ever guest on your show, which I hope I maybe be invited at some point,
Sure.
we'll have to be very judicious about what film we pick because I am not known for enjoying horror at all,
Oh,
particularly that goofy, or not goofy, like the schlocky, low budget stuff.
Yeah, I don't want to paint it as all schlock. We've done like Lost, like we've done a lot of like David Lynch and like
Okay, yeah.
Joe Dorowski and people, anything that's not for everyone, basically. So it can be high culture art
Oh,
kind of
okay.
shit or total crap. So it just depends what you're
Gotcha.
feeling.
I meant to ask you, Bobby, what would you give a 10 to?
Fuck.
Sorry.
I don't know if I give it a 10, but my favorite movie, just to put things into perspective, my favorite movie of all time is the 1968 Planet of the Apes, which came out the same year as 2000.
Mm.
Because it's one of the most brilliantly red pill. Like I love a good red pill movie. I hate that term now, but you know what I mean. Like where you're like, whoa, like it just blew my mind as a kid. It has nostalgia. It has great shot composition. It was You know, I
Very
believe
influential,
the
yeah.
play was written by Rod Sterling. Like it's fucking that movie's so good. But I don't know. Lost Boys is up there for me. That's a good ass movie. Shit like that. I don't know. That's a hard question. 10's got to be something special, and there's very
Yeah.
few that we even come close.
Yeah. I guess yeah, that's a good certainly yeah, Planet of the Apes is certainly a 9 for me. It's up there. It's pretty
It's
good.
up. It's
Yeah.
So
I
good.
watched those as a kid with my dad,
The
and
first one is the one.
The
I don't
first,
know
yeah,
if any yeah.
I like the kitsch of the other ones or whatever,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's just so far and away from the original.
yeah.
I like Cronenberg a lot. I like Videodrome and
That's a good movie, yeah.
shit like that's real good. I don't know. Just anything interesting. Like I was saying, it could be bad or it could be celebrated commercial success. It doesn't matter as long as it like does something for me. I don't know what it is.
True.
Yeah. That's
Okay, but for us, www.historyhomos.com, the RSS feed. Also, of course, we're available on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Please go subscribe to us on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that happy horse shit. And I said www.historyhomos.com. Yeah, so and then also we're available on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, Rockfin, and most importantly, please head over to historyhomospod.substack.com. Please, please, please subscribe over there on our Substack page. If you like the show, if you like this is a great example of the kind of content you'd find on the other side of the paywall there, because we do a lot of film and book analyses over there. So please go to historyhomospod.substack.com. 2 episodes, 100% more show than the free show that you just listened to. And it's just as in depth and thoughtful as this show was. So it's not, again, we're not going to stop recording and go, okay, Patrick, what the fuck are we going to talk about this week? I didn't think of anything. That's not what we do. So please go help us out and subscribe. We really appreciate it, and it makes us want to work even harder on the show. And we do continually do. Don't worry. If you don't, we'll also keep working harder on the show. But yeah, join us in our Telegram group. Breaking news as of recording is once again the friendliest place on the internet. Let's have a round
yeah,
of
baby.
applause.
Woo! That's
Woo!
right.
We did it. We did it. Mission accomplished. Um,
How many days now without a workplace, a telegram?
let's not get into the nitty gritty of it, but as of recording, it's the most friendly place on the internet. So head over there. T.me/historyhomos is the channel. T.me/historyhomos chat is the chat. Follow us across social media at historyhomospod. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or you'd like a t-shirt, you can email me your size and address to historyhomos@gmail.com. Sorry about that. That was a odd slip. And yeah, die with dignity. Patrick, what would you like to say to the people before we go?
I'm afraid I can't do that, Scott.
Later, homos.